Hello and welcome to computer class. My name is Dave and today we're talking about camera movements in videography. First, we need to talk about the basics, and the basics are this about movies. Films are made up of sequences, sequences are made up of scenes, and scenes are made up of shots. And that is the basics, and we've been trying to inform you over the past couple episodes about how to make these shots better. And so I'm going to talk today about camera movement. Before I begin, I got all this information from www.studiobinder.com/blog/different types of camera movements in film. And I will link that down in the description so you can see it. The types of camera shots really tell a lot about a scene, and the movement creates that energy in the scene. And so the first type of movement is actually not a movement at all. It is called the static shot. It is when no movement occurs on camera. The shot is stable and complacent and great for dialogue. Now, having no movement actually creates more energy than you might think. In fact, it's kind of like silence. People have said silence is deafening, and it is, but having a static shot is incredibly deafening when it comes to the camera movement world. So if a shot's just static, it really represents an incredible amount of tension. It really makes people like focus on the shot. The next is a pan, and it rotates the camera horizontally from left to right, or left or right, depending on what it can pan either direction, while remaining in a fixed location, typically on a tripod head, if you don't know what a tripod is, or any types of these camera apparatuses that I mentioned throughout these shots. Go back and watch my video on camera equipment. And then when this type of camera movement is done quickly, this movement is known as a whip pan, which adds more energy to the shot, and a slow pan will build a lot of anticipation. And so again, the speed of the pan actually matters as well, and this creates almost a revealing because it moves over and there's the subject. That being said, the tilt is just another way to use the camera. It directs the camera upward or downward depending on what's needed, and captures the vertically of the scene. It can build dominance or vulnerability, and can reveal information or scale. And so here's the movie Inception, and he looks up, and the camera tilts upward to reveal that the city is actually like bending backwards and falling on top of them, so to speak, or going to touch. It wraps all the way around. It's kind of a weird scene, but it accurately is captured by the tilt of the camera's motion to move upward, and see what he's seen. It actually is kind of like his head going upward slowly and looking at it. That being said, the push in movement moves the camera towards the subject. This motion emphasizes a moment and can be used to direct attention to specific detail. And sometimes when someone's sitting in a chair, maybe that's the best opportunity to kind of push in slowly towards them and capture that dialogue as they're talking or saying something, or maybe yelling at another character. That really reveals you have to have a little bit of motion in a lot of scenes. Otherwise, again, you get that deafening feel like with the static shot, and so push in accomplishes that. That being said, to couple it with that, sometimes even these are done in coalition with each other. The pull out moves the camera away from the subject, and this de-emphasizes the subject and signals the viewer to disconnect from the characters, or unveils what's going on in the scene. It can also emphasize incredibly negative emotions, depressing moments. Here we have Joker laying in the street, and he's just at his wits end. It's the end for him. It's where he kind of snaps as a character, and this shot pulls away from him and emphasizes the pain and the agony that he as a character is going through, and then as a result, the course that he does in the change of his life. Then we have a zoom, which is technically not a camera movement because the camera doesn't actually move, but the movement is created by using the camera lens. by changing the focal length of the camera lens, one can zoom in or zoom out quickly. Fast zooms are known as a crash zoom, and so crash zooms are incredibly effective to create that startling effect in film. But just a natural zoom is still an interesting effect as well when it comes to cinematography. Again, not a camera motion technically or camera movement, but it does nonetheless um, do something to the actual way that the viewer is seeing things. That being said, there are several ways to zoom here, and the Dolly Zoom has two versions here. The Dolly Zoom utilizes both a dolly movement, which is a cart that the camera operator sits on and usually pushes, but utilizes a dolly zoom and the lens zoom to create the vertigo effect or disorientation. And I'm going to link the video down in the description. It will explain a little bit more about a dolly zoom, but it's the movement and the lens in combination that creates this absolute weird effect of the crowd actually, or whatever's behind the character, will actually get really it'll just kind of move around them, and it creates a very disorienting effect. So there's two versions of the dolly zoom: dolly in while zooming out, which it causes the background to grow in size while maintaining the scale of the foreground, creates internal or external conflict. The second one is the dolly out while zooming in, which causes the foreground of the subject to become dominant over the background and can highlight a growing relationship between two subjects. So again, it creates that, and you have to see it to know what I mean. That's why I say watch the video at the end of this. I'll link it down in the description, because this dollying effect, this disorienting effect, is actually really effective and used in a lot of well-known films. That being said, a camera roll. Here we have an example. Can you tell Joker? I'm familiar with the Batman movies. I just love them. But Joker is upside down, and really they change the order of dominance by rolling the camera in this scene where Batman has Joker hanging upside down. They change the order of dominance because as Batman is as Joker is hanging upside down because Batman has him, they just do a camera roll, and it almost seems like now officially that Joker is upright, but he's not. He's still hanging upside down, yet the camera rolls over to be that way. So it turns the camera on its long axis while maintaining the direction of the lens. It's very disorienting and unsettling, but it does create some incredible views for the viewer because, like I said, you can even use it to change the order of dominance, being that the villain sometimes is like, the villain and the main character sometimes switch positions in dominance just because of a camera roll. It's amazing, as is in the case of Batman. So very effective. Can also be used to spin things around, tip things over, to feel like maybe you're in a car and it's tipping over or something like that. That's the camera roll. Tracking moves the camera through a scene, typically following a subject, and unlike the push in or pull out, the camera moves with the subject. It's as if they were on the move together. It's good for anticipation or usually trying to get to a certain place, so there's some sort of location destination for the camera. And usually you'll have to put the camera on some sort of a apparatus that is on an operator to actually follow the person. And usually also this type of shot, when it's taken, will have a little bit of walking motion because obviously they're following a character who's walking. So typically that's what happens. The next is a trucking shot, which the camera moves laterally left or right and is usually in sync with the subject but is looking at them from the side. So here you have an example of that. Notice the side view, but as they're walking this direction right here, the camera kind of moves over with them. But again, it's not tracking them from behind. It's following them on the side, so to speak. And that's a very effective camera motion as well. Usually when there's something that the director wants you to see, like for instance, they want you to see this boat that's coming up and the wharf that these characters are going to walk by. That's why you would do a trucking shot. And then we have the arc. That is where the camera orbits around the subject, typically horizontal, but it could be vertical as well, which could be an interesting shot. Keeps the viewer focused on the subject for a moment of intimacy, panic, or heroism. If something is going on all angles around them, the only way to really capture the entire 360-degree view is to actually just spin around them. And so, very effective camera shot when utilizing these panic scenes, especially. Um, you see a great pan when it comes to um, movies that have a lot of action in them. They tend to do a lot of arcing around things. Um, so like the movie like Catching Fire, for instance, or Hunger Games, when they come up out of those tubes and they're standing on them, uh, they tend to arc around those subjects really fast because they want to create that panic that they're feeling the first time being in the rink of going after each other and having to kill each other. So anyway, then the boom moves the camera up or down utilizing a crane or jib or pedestal, and I already talked about what a crane or jib is, and it's mentioned in the video there on that lesson what a pedestal is. But basically, this boom, it's a small boom movement, typically reveals information as the camera is up on this large crane. It reveals information, while large boom movements can be used to follow characters in action and capture them in the world surrounding them. So here's an example. He's trying to climb up. This is, I believe, from Full Metal Jacket. He's trying to climb up the Marine Corps training thing there, and he can't get to the top very easily. And as a result, the commanding officer is screaming at him, right? And you need a kind of a boom or a jib to get the full motion up the ladder as he's climbing. And so you need that height, and that's what the boom shot gives you. It's in correlation with a specific piece of camera gear. Then we have camera shake and random movements, which is a very effective additive, and usually that's why most camera shots are never static. They're actually just, back to the first shot that I did originally and I talked about, it's very rare that you have a static shot, because usually even if it has a shot where it's somewhat like doesn't move, it's not really a movement, it still has a little bit of shake involved. And the reason for that is it kind of adds realism to the scene. The shaking or the camera, the incidental zooms, or any motion that happens on the fly, it just really creates this realism as to what's going on, or it can create the effect of like someone's watching. It can create the effect of there's just a lot of explosions going on, or feeling, or intensity to the scene, or it just can create an actuality of how human bodies see things, because we're always kind of a little bit in motion, and everything's really not ever completely still. So that's why you might use this. You may not use a static shot unless you want to suck the energy out of the shot, really, but you might use a little bit of shake in your shot. And this is the video I've been referring to for half the episode now. I recommend you watch it. I'll link it down in the description. It talks about camera movement from a company called Studio Binder. And that should be it. That's the end of the lesson on camera movement. Hopefully you learned something today. Consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. And as always, I will see you in the next video.